All right, so this is the follow-up to our previous video where we changed the main bearing, where I said, oh, I'll show you the damage to the oil pan. So if you look right here, you can see where that bolt backed off and was wearing into the oil pan. So again, any product placement that we use on this channel, unless otherwise stipulated, we bought ourselves, and we buy it and use it because it works, not because it's given to us or anything else. So when we use something, it wasn't given to us. We paid out of pocket for it. It's what we normally use. So don't think that we're being sponsored by anybody, because we're not.
Not yet.
Not yet. I've been informed not yet. So I guess there's room for the future for sponsorships. So if there's anybody out there that'd like to sponsor us, by all means, contact us, let us know. So we're going to remove the gasket first. Normally I would have the pans on two different, well, we're going to do that. I'll move this portion of the pan out of here, and then this portion, I'll give you the interesting gasket removal tips. So a lot of people will be like, oh, just put a Roll-Lock Scotch pad on there, and Scotch pad, by the way, is a brand name. And then you use a die grinder or something with a Scotch pad on it. The reason I don't like to do that on aluminum oil pans is this has a nice, sharp, machined edge. If you're not absolutely careful, when you take the machine to it, you can, in fact, damage that edge, which will cause your aluminum casting to forever and ever leak. So you just need to be very careful as you pull up the existing gasket. Now it looks like somebody used some type of adhesive on this gasket. If you look at these gaskets, they have this self-adhesive on them already. So I'm hoping the only reason that they put adhesive on them was to keep them from moving around, because, well, they will sometimes slip out. But generally, gaskets like this, you shouldn't need to put adhesive on. If you are having to put adhesive on it, that means you might have damage to the part already, and you're not getting a good quality seal on your gaskets. So I'm going to take a few moments, remove these gaskets, and then be back with you once the gasket's off, because, watching a guy scrape gaskets is about as interesting as watching paint dry. From Days of Our Lives. Now, depending on if our trusty boy Sherman here, oh, you didn't get that reference either, did you, Xander?
No, I understand the reference. Thanks.
The movie? Dude, that was a cartoon.
They made a movie. It was a kid's movie.
It was an awesome cartoon. Mr. Peabody with his boy Sherman. Unless you're in Massachusetts, and then it's not Peabody, it's Peabody. True story. I'm not throwing shade at the audience. Because right now, anybody watching this in Massachusetts would be like, that's right, it's Peabody. There ain't no Peabody, it's Peabody. So now we're going to look at this. As you can see, there's a there's a plug here for different applications. It's not really a great drain plug because the oil isn't this high, even though you can see somebody's tried to pull it out before. And again, as you're cleaning stuff up, use brake clean. Doesn't matter where it comes from. And honestly, doesn't matter what brand it is. Most brake clean is created equally. I know there's some people who'll be like, no, you got to have this specific brand. Nah, whatever works. But one thing I will caution folks about brake clean, certain paints, certain dyes, don't like it. It will soften up the paint and whatnot. It will cause the paint to come loose. So make sure whatever you're doing, put a little bit on a rag first, then touch it to some place that won't be noticed on the paint. Check it out. Make sure that it's not going to lift the paint. If it starts lifting the paint, well then you have to go to something a little less aggressive than a brake clean. That you would have to talk to, honestly, if you know the paint that's on the equipment, talk to them. If it's a custom paint, if you know what brand paint was sprayed on there, you can ask them. Ask the local paint supplier what would be the best chemical to degrease it. Sometimes just a regular engine degreaser will be enough. So, but for most stuff, especially if it's baked on an engine over time, it won't come off with brake clean. And a lot of times if it gets bad, you're going to wind up repainting it anyway. So there's that. You're going to have to, oh.
Audio probably get that over with that. I'm also sitting here considering how loud the neighbors are being.
Oh, look, it's chicken. It's chicken. Oh, working on not working, buddy.
Yeah.
Working on not working. Making truck. We're making truck.
Yeah.
Want to be a truck star?
No.
What do you mean no?
Working on the cake?
Yeah. Yeah, we are. Yeah, we're actually making a YouTube video. Yeah, didn't you get the invitation before?
Well, I saw the 13 speed and I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Mike's like looking at it going, what is this
Well,
nonsense?
I saw it and I'm like, what's it? Xander messed up. I'll find out. I was on my way here. I'll find out. I don't know what the hell he's doing.
Yeah, no, that's.
I played a fan.
Well, no. Yeah, this is the follow-up to it that shows the damage that the bolt did when it backed off.
Oh, shit. You think you can put a hole in it?
Right? If it would have kept working, it would have eaten a hole right through that pan. And then there would have been much sadness because the oil would have dribbled out slowly. And then with no oil, by the time the oil light came on, with it leaking out, it was done.
Yeah.
Everything was done except for the crying.
Yeah.
Fortunately, because we went to fix the oil leak on the oil can over there, we found it.
Yeah.
So
if you wouldn't have went to regasket the pan,
we wouldn't have found that.
Yeah.
Right. And it could have been
because it would have been a long trip.
catastrophic.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now, what caused the bolt to back out?
Head snapped off.
So the head was missing off of the bolt, and then the bolt turned itself out from vibration. What the reason that I think that no. So as you tighten a bolt, especially a bolt like that, because you go to
you got to go certain.
well, no, it's not like a Caterpillar. You go to I believe the original torque spec was 190, and then 450.
Holy That's a big jump.
And then you back them off, and then
So you're getting it.
so you set it, and then yeah, it's like wheel nuts almost, right?
Yeah.
So what I think happened is when the guy that did the overhaul on it didn't have somebody that could really pull the 450 that much.
Oh.
So
Yeah. Close but no cigar.
right. So one was tight.
Yeah.
And one was not as tight. Yeah. So much like on a set of duals, the tire that's got full air pressure gives out before the tire that's low. Yeah. So I think that the bolt that was fully torqued, it popped the head off. Then that crank fell down on the.
It's working like this.
Yeah.
And
It's
you.
So so the crank fell down a little bit, put enough pressure on that to keep the other bolt from backing out.
But
and then
it didn't score it.
No, it did not score up the crank. Yeah. The bearings had a little bit of weird wear on them, so I changed the bearings.
But they weren't. They didn't get into the copper or whatever.
Right. No. So
yeah, that's your luck.
Right, dodged the big bullet on this one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, you want to get the magnet, Xander? Because now we're going to go magnet fishing.
For the head?
No, whatever's left off in that sump of that pan.
Yeah. Oh. So
we're going to go magnet fishing, yeah. Well, because I'm going to dump it out there. I want to know if there's anything else that I need to go looking for in that engine.
Yeah.
Because, man, that's not going to be good if I do.
Well, yeah, you must do 110% because someone else might have worked.
Come loose, yeah. All right, folks, so now we're going to go magnet fishing. What is that?
Plastic or rubber. It's non-magnetic.
It is non-magnetic. Could it be bearing material? Could it be? No, it's plastic. Now, where does that come from? Okay, so that's something we're going to wind up playing. Where does that part go? No, there shouldn't. No, it's not soft. It's hard plastic. Yeah. Yeah, it's hard plastic.
A piece of install or something used?
You know what it looks like? It's hard though.
Yeah.
It almost looks like one of those caps that go over the vacuum on the car.
Yeah, a little bit like a vacuum line, but diesels don't have vacuum lines. Not these anyway. So there's no real bearing material or anything in here, so that's good. Now we're going to dump out what's left over in this pan in a bucket over here because, yep. Oh. Oh, look, I made a mess again. I love that. Dust control. You dust control. That was dust control like 50 years ago, man. I got a stand in it. Why? What's the matter with your clutch linkage?
I think I gotta look at the linkage, but it needs to go over to the door more, and I think the spacer's on the wrong side, but I don't know. But something's not.
Does it hit?
That's why that floorboard was all messed up.
So what it can be, because it's
the arm might be
wore out on the shaft. Yeah.
That's why I figured I'm just gonna take it all the way off and have it out and look at it. Because you can't. You're sitting there trying to go in between the transmission and see if you got slop in it. Can't tell. Because you know how it is. It could be a little bit, but it's enough. Yeah.
Well, that's just it. And I mean, that truck's not, you're not going to work that truck anyway, so.
I'll go fix it and fix it right.
I'm gonna grab some more rags, please, Sherman. Mr. Peabody with his boy Sherman. He's gonna kill me.
No.
Yeah, he is. Huh?
Peabody.
Mr.
Yes, Peabody. Instead of Mr. J, it's going to say
Mr. Peabody, right? You're gonna have to change his shirts to say Sherman on them. Oh shit!
Ain't Sherman, you ain't it.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's that. That's the link that he sent you. Is
Yeah. Oh, nice.
You have to really work on it.
Oh, really?
yeah. Those are actually better than those RAM mounts,
Oh, yeah.
and the RAM mounts are good.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that! Shameless product plug. Dude, you have got your work cut out for you in the editing of this one. I'm just.
It depends on how much Mike doesn't want to be in the video.
He's like, as long as my face ain't there.
Product.
I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't think I need to plant, but I have to reach out to the other people to make that.
Well, you're going to need to bleep out the phone call from Kurt.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm just going to get through.
Yeah, there's.
Well, I mean, you're in the beginning stages. We'll see. You get better as you go.
Well, that's just it. And
I finally got the first video completed and made Tuesday night. This is going a bit easier.
yeah, that first video is like 45 minutes long of me
This probably
literally changing the main bearing, the upper and lower main bearings in there. So, you know. Oh, it should. You should edit a fair amount of this shit out because some of it is just
Tedious shit.
nonsense, you know.
But you never know your audience.
scraping the gas.
See, that's what he says, and I'm like, who wants to watch some guy scraping a gasket?
You never know. Some guy, you're trying to find YouTube something, and they always skip the part in the front. They're like, motherfucker, that ain't the easiest part. Give me that fucking. How you took that off?
Chicken's gonna have bleeps this time.
That's okay. We'll use the cluck. We'll get a cluck. And we'll credit him special guest appearance of chicken. Right? And then you can tell people, hey, I'm internet famous. What do you mean, no thank you?
It's just like your body.
So yeah, we're gonna try and get out like two a week of just different things. I think the next video we're gonna make will be on that wiring harness. How to diagnose it and then changing that wiring harness. So
People need that one.
yeah, they might, because I couldn't find one when I went to look, right? Because I'm going to be like, oh, let's see what the easy way is, because I'm sure somebody somewhere has come up with an easy way on this one, and they're like, nope. So I'm like, okay, well, so yeah, that's what that's about. And we're open to suggestions for future videos, because it's not like we don't have enough stuff around here that we can do them on.
Oh yeah.
You get your pickup back yet? They figured it out yet?
Figure probably middle of next week. Maybe.
Have they figured out why it's doing what it's doing yet?
No. You gotta go through all the sensors and all the stuff and replace whatever.
Yeah, see, that's when it gets real expensive for them. Yeah, if I was...
I would want to get it. I would have 2 people on it full time to get it out.
Well, I don't know about 2 people, but I would definitely have my best guy on it.
This guy and the supervisor.
You know.
Supervisor salary. So
Well, sometimes those supervisors, believe it or not,
they don't know jack.
they don't...
They went to school and they moved up.
They didn't even go to school. They just knew how to play the game to get the promotion. And sometimes, in some companies, people get promoted because they're so bad at their job
It's easier to move them forward.
than it is to fire them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So you take the brake clean and soften up these gaskets a little bit, and the adhesive under it, it'll cause it to lift. So, and then we'll use a little bit of emery cloth to get the rails all nice and clean. As you can see, aluminum rails gouge easy. There's gouges in it from previous people. Those little shiny scrapes, they're not really gouges. After all these years, I've learned how to not gouge it. I'm not so worried about scratches, but gouges, yeah. So if you notice, when I scrape this gasket, I always keep this a fairly nice edge on the scraper. Not so much that I'm cutting it, more is that I'm shaving it. And what it does is, if it's got a nice flat straight edge, it doesn't gouge. It's when you get jagged, foul edges that it really gouges. So, and you just want to shave this gasket up. Somebody decided that they were going to glue this on right here. And boy, howdy, did they glue this on. That's a nice term, huh? Boy, howdy. What are we laughing at, Sherman?
No, I think you just forget. I think you've done too much time traveling, Mr. Peabody.
Huh?
I said, I think you've done too much time traveling, Mr. Peabody. I think you forgot what century it was.
Isn't this the 1920s?
It feels like the roaring 20s anyway. World War food shortages. You know.
The only thing we don't have is a World War. Oh, wait.
I made up. Nope.
Which one are you cutting out? The World War or the made-up play?
Probably the made up because that's the one that can actually get me in trouble. Someone should have glued it in there.
Yep. Glued it like it was cool. Just so you know, folks, when using adhesives On pan gaskets, if you're dealing with an aluminum pan, do not adhere the gasket to the aluminum pan. You're better off to adhere the gasket to the steel surface, because you have to take your time and be very gentle when scraping a gasket off the pan. That way, you don't come up with these gouges. This is what you get when you get all ham-fisted while scraping a gasket. And I know there's going to be people out there going, that's why you use the Roll-Lock with the Scotch pad on it. Except that will tear up the edge really bad, especially in the hands of somebody that's inexperienced with them. So the best way to do it now, if you notice while I'm doing this, I'm using a little bit of brake clean. I'll scrape it to a new surface. I'll get it so the brake clean comes out, gets into the gasket, saturates the gasket a bit to soften it up, so you can go ahead and oh, how nice. This has made it nice and slick where I've got to stand. This is fun. Now I'm going to show you how to ice skate on a cement floor. Whip out some of my best ballet moves. Where'd Chicken go?
He went out the front to go.
What, he went all the way out the front? Why didn't he just open up the back doors?
I don't know why he didn't do that.
Silly Chicken. Also, for all the audience out there, if they have anything that they would like to see or question they have, please please write a comment. When we see them, we'll try and get back to them as soon as we can. Oh, there's such a wide array of different adhesives. Commonly, though, nowadays, a lot of people will put some RTV on them, generally high temp RTV. RTV a lot of times will come up. I'm glad the days of them using, they used to have this stuff put out by Caterpillar. There was a gasket adhesive. It was some gold stuff. You might as well just throw away whatever they stuck the gasket to, because that stuff stuck. The gasket would blow out and leak, but you couldn't get it off of whatever, and invariably they would stick it to the aluminum part, whether it was an aftercooler, an oil pan, water pump, whatever. No, they were like, oh yeah, here it is. We'll just stick it here to this aluminum part and then put it up there. It'll never leak. Well, that was great for the shop that did it, because you're right, it didn't leak. And then when there was a problem, they had to take it apart, and the next guy got it, then it leaked. So, not fun time. Permatex makes some stuff that's pretty good. And again, the old Permatex High Tack, you know, that worked well. That was some sticky stuff. But again, hard to get off once it was on there. Wasn't meant to come off. Used a lot of that Permatex High Tack on high temp jobs with a lot of oil. So now we're taking the emery cloth. If you noticed, I used a little bit of the brake clean on it. It's almost like wet sanded. What that does is two things. One, it allows the grit to cut a little bit better. but it also keeps the emery cloth from filling up, and it helps the cloth eject helps cloth eject any of the debris that it's sanding up. Because again, smooth and clean is what you want to put this back together with. And I don't know if you can see this that well, but you can see, especially now that I'm sanding it, when I first run the sandpaper over it, you can kind of see some lines from that, from this imprinted gasket material in different areas on the pan. You can see this where that red line was, where it's wore into it a little bit. That's got to come out, otherwise that will be a spot for it to leak. And again, this is just a final cleanup, get it nice and clean and smooth and flat. Make sure all the gasket debris is off. Any adhesive that they used on it is gone. So you can and you don't need to douse it. The other thing that you can use, depending on where you're at in this great country of ours, a little bit of gasoline or diesel instead of the brake clean. I'm using the brake clean because it's convenient. I'm lazy. And I want to make sure that everything's clean inside. If you notice, also picking up all the oil that's leaching back into the sump, because you're going to want this as clean as you can when you put it back together. All engines should be clean inside. Now, even though it's got a lot of black, dirty oil, that oil is sometimes cleaner than some things you think is clean. So, if you look right here around this hole, somebody put some gouges in it. Somebody put some gouges down here. If it got too bad, I would actually get a flat block for sanding, for doing body work, and I'd block this. I'm tempted to do it right here to this part of the pan, but I don't want to put too big of a low spot in it. Otherwise, the gasket will never really seal in these gouges. These gouges are concerning. I may, when I put the gasket on this time. And unfortunately, the gasket was stuck back here. There's no gouges back here. This part came off. But right here where there are gouges from where somebody else did it, this is where you should put a little RTV. Or better yet, and stuff that always comes up, what I may do is run a little bit of gasket eliminator on here. And run the gasket eliminator to seal that up. Gasket eliminator is oil resistant, and it seals anaerobically over time. So it will flow into and seal those notches that are in there. Right now we're just cleaning this up. So this is the primary sump on that. And if you notice, some animal right here, this is old because you can tell by the amount of dirt that's in it. Some animal right in here really got after it with something. And they really beat up this pan rail. And you really want to take nice care of your pan rail. So if you're wondering, well, okay, I have a pan that somebody glued up there and stuck it down. how do I get it down without wedging something in there? Your last resort is actually to wedge something in here like this. This looks like somebody used a pry bar or a screwdriver or something. So what I would recommend doing is getting a block of wood, putting alongside this like a 2x4 in one hand, or if you have somebody to help you, have them hold it very carefully so you don't whack their fingers, and then get a dead blow hammer, which is not a rubber mallet. Rubber mallets bang too much, but a dead blow hammer, which is kind of a plastic or polymer filled hammer, the polymer hammer that's filled with sand or some other weighted material to hit the 2x4 with, to break the seal on the oil pan to knock it loose. Once the seal's broken, it generally comes down. You don't have a problem. But if you're getting to the point where the pan doesn't want to come down, you absolutely need to check for hidden bolts. And hidden bolts will sometimes live up to their name. Be hidden, and you can't bring them down. On the 855 Cummins, there's 4 small 1/4-inch bolts that go up in the back that go into the bell housing. A lot of people don't realize that they're there. They take out what they believe are all the pan rail bolts, and they're like, this pan isn't coming down. So then they get the chisels and the hammers out, and they fracture the back of the oil pan off. Never a pretty sight. So just be aware of that when you're taking pans down. So now we will clean this part here. Oh look, somebody's Krylon overhaul failed. Right here. Look at that.
Yep, I see it.
Also, while you're doing all of this and cleaning it up, you need to look for any kind of cracks. Even though pan may never have been hit, may not show any signs of being hit, over time, from the heat and contraction and vibration of an engine, they will in fact develop small hairline cracks that are not always easy to see. And sometimes you'll be chasing a leak thinking it's gaskets, when in fact what it is a hairline fracture in the crack. Fracture in the crack. Wow, yeah, of course it is. Hairline fracture in the pan, or a crack in the pan. And a lot of times they'll happen right around here in the edges, things like that, because of flexing. And a lot of that is vibrational work hardening. A lot of people are like, well, it's just an oil pan, it hangs there. Yes, that's true. But things also get work hardened. Everything does have a finite life. You know, believe it or not, except taxes. They seem to go on forever. Even after you die.
Especially after you die.
So just want to make sure that there's no cracks in it. Wow, this is kind of dirty too. It's pretty dirty. You have to clean that all up. Now there are some people that you will find that work on trucks and cars and equipment that don't mind being absolutely dirty. When you're working on something, if you're overhauling it, if you're putting it back together, You should always clean it up. Always. For one thing, it allows a better result for your work, and if something goes wrong during the process, you can more easily see it. If there's a crack that is developed that you didn't catch on your initial inspection, you can be like, hey, look at this. I just found a crack. So, now this pan exhibits no signs of cracking anywhere, either inside or out. It's pretty clean. Just doing the final touches. Now, I'm not going to do the Krylon or Rust-Oleum overhaul like a lot of people do on this particular truck, because honestly, the whole engine really needs to be repainted. So that'll be for another time, in another video. This pretty much sums up what we've done here today. If you enjoyed the video, please give us a like and a follow. Leave any comments with questions or any topics that you'd like to see, and thank you for joining us today.